Yeah! It's Hylics. Or in the words of the people, build greatening bugs, southmost collective the pursuit. Discover pseudo-sensational oxidation powder with fifth matter. What I'm trying to say is hello. Today, let's look at Hylics. Not just a look, but a stare. Hylics is a very fascinating game, and to skip ahead, in my 2 hours of a playthrough for this video, I sat at the credits feeling nothing. Empty. That nothing was magical. That this was an experience I gained not much from. Like, what is there to talk about with Hylics? So I took a walk, wondering if I lost the ability to see the magic in games, and wonderings of what people see in this game. And I came back with the realization that Hylics is important, I think. And I want to go through my playthrough and chill out, and see if y'all can see what I felt, because I believe it will be necessary to understanding it. A game I only found the truest value in after finishing it and thinking about it. I think this game has something important to say, potentially regardless of the game itself, rather the aura it bestows from its non-physical existence. But before I start going through the game and describing how it all works, let's take a step back and look at the overall orb. Hylics was released in 2015, and was at the time Mason Lindroth's biggest project yet. Mason is a surreal artist of unbelievable quality, making works that are out of this world to me. I can't even begin to understand how this was done, and that's what makes it so intriguing. He's done a ton of game jam projects and album art. It's also distinct, every piece consisting of its own little world to be lived in. It seems a lot of his games have been scraped from the internet. Allegedly, he doesn't want people playing his older projects, but it's still possible to find playthroughs of them. Maybe in some ways, they're more of art to be looked at than games to be played. Though there are some on his itch.io that can be played. Only problem is that he made a lot of Flash games, and Flash is kinda dead. I'm sure they've been backed up though, but I can't be asked. And I'm sure like 50% of the people watching this video have already skipped to the Hylics session where I actually play the game. But these games have such a striking style, and in some ways, it can be said that these visuals are the most important part of Lindroth's work. Maybe it's easy just to say, these games sure are weird. But I think that's digging on the surface level. I'm searching for the buried treasure. Just saying it's weird is too easy. No effort. That's boring. Games can identify and express themselves through many facets, all dependent on the creator or creators behind them. It's not always about the gameplay, right? And even though my overall feelings on the game may be limited by my own views and values on why I play games, I can still appreciate what Hylics presents itself as a video game. Hopefully this will all make sense by my overall analysis after this playthrough, which I think it's time we start going into. Hylics released in 2015, I obtained and completed it in 2016, and now, 6 years later, I return, ready for a fresh playthrough as a person who can now hopefully express and see this game under a new light, and be able to shine that light to the world. Let's begin. The title opens up, a close-up of the main character, Wayne, alongside this animated showcase of sprites scrolling by, as if we're at a gallery, a showcase of things to come. Okay, I'll stop with the pretentious crap, but it's nice to see an animated title screen. The music is nice too, as abstract as the art itself. It's been referenced as post-rock and psychedelic rock, which in itself are pretty vast genres. I've already listened to quite a few songs under these labels, and they can be pretty rocking, but also very chill. I recommend y'all check out Interstellar from Octopus Diver. Songs like that are the peak of my love with this genre. The super chill side of psychedelic rock. That calm, wandering guitar, holding my hand and taking me to a different world. Not many songs can do that for me. This music was all composed by Mason as well, and there's a mellowness to it all. I think the chill songs are the peak. Like, even the standard battle songs are just these non-intensive guitar jams. Maybe it's nothing special. I've heard people call it amateurish. But I always like that kind of vibe of someone just entering their own flow, playing notes. That's kind of what this music reminds me of. I think it adds to the experience, and shows the power of when someone has control over every part of their game. I haven't heard the sequel soundtrack, but it is kind of sad that Mason got a musician specifically for it, though the music does probably slap, I won't deny that. But I'm just not sure if it can capture what the first game does. The imperfection breathes depth and blends with the rest of this game's messy style. It oddly fits in a way that makes sense. I think most notably of them all for me is a song titled Chill. It was the song used in the opening of this video, and it's up there as one of my favorite songs. Like, not even in Hylics, just in general. Of course, music is so wide and varied of an art. It comes in all forms, and there are different days where I love different songs. But I appreciate this song so much. It really gives me the feeling of just sitting somewhere with someone while they play away. Maybe a nice little beach while the sun sets, wind blows, and I close my eyes. It's such a casual, simple piece of music. And I wonder if something more complex, something more professional, could capture something as quaint as a song like Chill, without ruining what makes it special. The calm, personal, quiet notes being played from someone in their own rhythm, and being able to witness it all. And I guess the funny part is that I don't even think this song plays in game. I don't think it was part of Mason's soundtrack of the game he uploaded either. It's actually kind of scarce in its appearance online, but it's there, it's in the in-game files. And it's the one song I always find myself going back to. I should probably start talking about the game now, huh? But in my defense, when it comes to this game, the music was always the highlight to me, even if it's only a few songs that stick out to me. Regardless, let's start a new game. The game begins with this character on a small island. A tyranny slowly deceives the sustenances. The people approach with a mandible. It is an insect out of porcelain vent. It is a theory, far beyond sustenance. Meanwhile, Gibby, King of the Moon, rolls a apparel inside the convexity science. Thus, your story begins. We play as the intermission character pressing the switch. Beginning Act 1. Whenever I talk about the messiness of this game, I mean things like artifacting on sprite sheets. See these random pixels out here? That's the kind of crustiness that makes Hylics what it is. Anyways, if y'all didn't catch the plot, which, I mean, I wouldn't blame ya, but basically, there's a guy on the moon named Gibby, and we gotta beat him up. Why? You're asking way too many questions. Let's move on. And here we are, with Wayne. This dude in this badass jacket, chilling in his house with his cat. I kinda like the vibe here. A chill track playing over this dude with his simple house. Nothing but a TV, a couch, and a bathtub that I guess he sleeps in. Just this isolated house away from everyone. I checked the TV and I saw a cool animation, a hint of things to come with the battle animations in this game, and Wayne learned a new skill, which is what interacting with TVs do. I remembered this game wrong because I thought that once I check a TV, I couldn't do it again, making it impossible for other characters I'll soon recruit to get those skills, but that's not true. However, I restarted anyways under that idea. So now my dumbass has to sit through the intro text again, which... Wait. This is different from last time. I'll explain why this is in a bit, but let's get back to the game. Not much to do from a gameplay perspective at Wayne's house. I mean, I can cool it with the cat, that's dope. Loot the toilet, watch some TV, and get out. Outside Wayne's house are some trash cans and random animals. There's a coolness to seeing items uniquely crumple when searching them. But yeah, sometimes I just don't get anything from them, cause I guess that just wasn't the point. The animation was cool. There's a vegetable garden too. Vegetables are super reliable healing items, healing 50% health. They can max anyone in 2 uses. It's good to remember where to grab them too. I'll explain why later. Grabbing a potentially random number of bucks, we dip out from Wayne's house and onto the world map. Yeah, this game's got a whole world map. Let's head to the city up north. We're at the mechanical city now, with quite a number of shops. This is the main place the player will improve and strengthen their characters by the use of money to buy items and equipment, alongside socializing with the locals. Yeah, me too, baby. Yeah, I've been there before, man. So while I shop and explore, let me explain something potentially controversial about this game. Remember how the text was different between the 2 openings? Well, that's because most of the dialogue in this game is completely random, with only a few real static words. The game never mentions this either, which I think is really funny. Imagine all the people trying to spend time dissecting and understanding what these characters are saying to try to find some hidden meaning in the game, when it's all just garbled nonsense. I know this pisses some people off, and yeah, there's a bit of emptiness knowing this. It's the kind of info that can ruin the game for some people, and I was basically skipping through what everyone said because of this, because it's just nonsense, it's pointless. Sure, some NPC text is static, but I just skipped through everyone with a glance as if it wasn't. I think this is one of the first signs of what Mason wanted to do with this game. I'm pretty sure Mason just put the random text in as a joke, and I think it's a sort of commentary with the deepness people find and make up about games. That people can just put these random nonsensical messages and it makes their game look smarter. And maybe it's a showcase of a message to not rely on the typical RPG tropes of listening to NPC dialogue, rather than paying more attention to the environment, the game's visuals, to guide the player on what to do next. I don't know, I guess I kind of see it more as the game telling the player that there's more to this game than just the gameplay we've become used to, and to try and play differently. But I might be tripping. Anyways, I don't actually have money to buy anything, so let's head farther north in the city. Now at the ancient ruins, which is a wide place full of enemies, I encounter this gamer named Dedulzman. Hylics has some pretty interesting and abstract character designs, where I can't really describe what I'm looking at when it comes to some of them. Like, I don't know what to say. That just looks like Dedulzman to me. They're cool. Dedulzman's looking for a paper cup, and says I can sleep in their bed to get directions, which gives this cute little imagery to guide us to where we can find this paper cup, once again using the imagery of the game to help us, rather than the dialogues of others. I also come across this Sage of Brains, who gives me a token, telling me to find the tokens of the other 2 sages. Alright, neat. I like these birds in the back. They don't really fit in with this world, but I mean, I don't fit in with the world I'm in. They're just like me, for real, for real. So now I'm off to search this area for a paper cup, but we aren't alone, with these cone cultists walking around. This game has on-screen encounters, and I'm sure some of y'all are excited to hear me talk about the combat system, and well, keep that excitement intact, because there's no way in hell I'm getting into a fight yet. This is kind of like Hylics' first trick. I wouldn't blame people for saying this game is hard. I think I remember dying quite a lot when I first played this. A huge factor of this game that's really important is being able to manipulate enemies' movements and maneuvering around enemies, because as of now, Wayne stands no chance against these enemies on his own, and I'm not ready to die yet. Luckily, my movement is excellent, and I safely procured the cup. I head back to Dedulzman and give them the cup, and they join my party. Sweet! They have a water dispenser for paper cups in their tent, but I decided it'd be best to come back and use it later, though I never ended up using it. I'll explain why I did this a bit later though. So I figure about 50% of the people watching this are scratching their heads, wondering why the hell they're watching this crap. I mean, okay, I made that joke in the last vid, but y'all are probably surprised I went for Der Dolzmann first. And yeah, me too. I remember getting a different character first on my first playthrough. This game is surprisingly open in its ways to recruit party members. The player can really go in any order they want. I think my first playthrough I got Der Dolzmann third or last. If I can say anything about the gameplay of Hylics, is that it really captures what makes on-screen encounters fun. That it lets me tackle areas I shouldn't be able to yet freely with these intense chase sequences, knowing I'm slumped if I'm caught. But on the other side, it also means that I can just avoid encounters for a pretty long time, and it doesn't help that this game doesn't have traditional XP and levels, but there is still a reason to fight, such as money, which I probably should have got some before I left this place. Like, I wanted that accessory that lets me dual wield weapons, but oh well. It's not like I can discern what any of these stats mean besides mightiness. I do think it's pretty funny that Wayne starts out with the weakest weapon in the game, which happens to be a gun, easily outclassed by things such as a bat or a dirk. Granted, the gun has no ammo, but have y'all seen what Reeve can do with that thing? Golly. Back on the world map, I head back to Wayne's place to teach my characters the skill on Wayne's TV, but then I just turn around, so I guess I don't. Spacey, what the hell? I guess I'm still on the one-use TV mindset. But yeah, ideally do that with every character. Revisit TVs every time y'all get a new character. So right now, our current problem is that we have a boat that we can use to explore the world map, but there's this gate in the way that's blocking any further access. So once we can find a way to open that, we can really start exploring this world. So for now, let's just head south. I call this place the warp area. It's another section with a lot of enemies, but navigating around to the center, I find the warp and I take it to the second world map. I also found a paper cop. Not sure if I can recruit the Dolzmann with this one, but whatever, too late. I always enjoyed the blues and pinks of this world map. For as trippy as this game can look, its colors are always relaxed enough to not cause any jarring moments of having to look at garish colors. Mason really had a way of picking colors for all these screens that does huge amounts for his art. There's definitely intent between how colors for different objects such as the foreground and the background differ in terms of helping the player understand what they're looking at and defining areas. I can easily tell where to go, yellow buildings being areas to visit, blue ground that I can traverse, and the pink water for the background. I love the darkness off in the distance, with the pink water riding off there, fading to nothing. There's some buildings we can enter, but most of them lead to some rather difficult fights, and I still wasn't feeling confident in a battle with these two losers, so I decided to continue walking around. There's some creatures roaming about, but they're harmless, aside from this casually roaming boss scampering about. But buddy, I haven't even fought a normal enemy yet, so we'll come back for this guy. I take another warp back to the normal world, on an island on the world map, and I encounter what might be one of the more memorable places in this game for me. This weird ass house. Looking at the structure of it, the background, it really gives me the sense that every screen in this game is like being able to walk around in Mason's images. I feel like I could analyze and talk about all these places in detail, which might be more of a worthwhile thing to do than gameplay. But I guess I'm trying to do it all here. But there is a part of me that feels like Hylics is just a virtual gallery in the form of a video game, with chill music as we walk by all this artwork. Entering the house, we get one of the most iconic screens in the game, at least for me. Just this top view camera angle, and all the disposition between the different objects, like this one having these dark outlines compared to the softer ones on the other objects. It all looks so out of place and wrong, but that somehow makes it look right. There's something cool with how unique every screen in this game is. I'm walking on art pictures, not tile sets. We find Samsnosa here, who's looking for her gauntlets in her basement, so she joins up. Samsnosa is a pretty popular character, and she's cool too. Interestingly enough, Samsnosa was what Hylics was originally called, based off how Mason botched writing his name down when he was young, and he apparently would name games anagrams of his name, and Samsnosa was like a merging of these two names. At least that's what I've read. I've also heard that Samsnosa was the name of an earlier game of his, and this was the first screen from it. I've actually read that Hylics was in a lot of ways a sort of amalgamation of a lot of Mason's previous work, reforming to create something new. Okay, let's get off the wiki page and get back into the game. I haven't mentioned this yet, but the controls in this game kinda mess with me. In most RPG Maker games, Z is the confirm key, X is the cancel/menu key. But here, Z and X are both confirm, and C is the cancel and /menu. And I don't think I ever got used to that. We've got 3 party members, so I'm feeling pretty good to fight now. But in the basement, there's no such fights. Instead, these ambulant skulls that instantly kill the player when they touch them. Luckily, my movement is clean as hell like usual, and damn, that's cool. But, well, game over, right? Gotta go back to my previous save, lose progress, and oh, wait. Not quite. Hylics has some very unique ideas when it comes to its gameplay. I think it's now I can finally start talking about everything. Dying is part of the game, and it takes us to the screen. This place is pretty dope. Of note here is the meat grinder. Fighting enemies rewards us with meat, which can be grinded here to increase our max HP on all of our current party members. There are several interesting ways to improve characters in this game, increasing their max health, known as flesh, using money to buy armor, which also usually increases their max flesh, and using these water machines from earlier, which increases will, the MP substitute used for the TV skills that we can find. The only problem with this is that the meat grinder and water only applies to party members currently in the party. So I think it's best to wait until I have 3 or 4 characters to start using the grinder and the water machines. I like the beach here too in this area, where I can build these sandcastles and step on them. The fact that there are multiple sandcastle designs is so cool. The effort went into this small mechanic does a lot. Sure, this doesn't affect gameplay, but I think it affects the theme of the game, and it's clear that that might be more important. So beforehand while exploring, I got my hand on a strong item known as dynamite, and I could use them here to get a new skill, a pretty helpful buffing skill. Finally, the best thing about this afterlife area are these crystals. You might have noticed me interacting with them earlier, and here, I get to activate one as a teleportation device. So I can go back to all these different areas of the game. It's pretty handy. In some ways, this is more like a hub area that the player can only access via death. Considering it's only possible to use the meat grinder in this afterlife area, it's kind of encouraged that the player dies on purpose at some point to come here, which is such an interesting idea. And encouraging, like, damn, I lost a fight, this sucks. But then it's like, well, I didn't lose much of any progress, and while I'm here I might as well upgrade myself and come back even stronger. The player can even get a neat reward for dying 3 times. Finally, after death, vegetables regrow, so y'all can go back to certain spots like Wayne's house to get some green. By heading back, I snatch the gauntlets, which automatically and unremovably get put on Samsnosa, who is now overpowered. I then proceed back to that tower, and well, it's time to get into some fights. As really every part of this game, fights are very visually impressive, having a multitude of backgrounds, and the attack animations being these flicks and hand motions, forming clay. The sound associated with the dark flame attack has always lied dormant in my head, probably because it hurts like hell. Youch! Y'all can see by my first hit taken why I held back on combat. It can be tough at first. Samsnosa is strong, so I spend a lot of the fights with the strategy of buffing her and making sure she stays alive. Characters each have a skill specific to them, and Samsnosa's is a leeching attack that targets all enemies. It's super useful. After all this non-combative recruiting, I'm hungry for some action, so I take out everyone in this tower. When an enemy is dead, they're actually just dead. Like, I don't know if they respawn, it might be permanent. Grinders be gone. There really isn't too much to these battles. It never really evolves in any way out of the more typical turn-based encounters, which I guess is funny considering everything else around Hylics is interesting. I remember one article describing Mason's troubles with tackling a turn-based game, saying something like turn-based games are rigid without a lot of room for expression. And buddy, Chris Priestman, we dissing turn-based RPGs out here? They're called turn-based for a reason, my gamer. I find the switch to the gate so we can start using our boat, leading us to a forced encounter against the Horde projection. This is the first real boss of the game, and this boss actually killed me the first time around, which I mean I hadn't grinded meat yet or bought any equipment, so it was kinda expected. But I think I could have won if I played smarter and got luckier. The guard's dark flame attack is random, and if they use it enough, it can just wipe me. So ideally, take them out first, but poison the projection early on using the skill gotten from Samsnosa's place. There's not really much for natural status resistances in this game unless the enemy has a certain buff, so poisoning bosses and enemies I'm generally not targeting is super effective and can help hint at how much health the enemy has left. What was important for me was keeping Samsnosa alive, don't let her drop below half, and have Wayne and Dead Dulzman keep her buffed and alive, as her gauntlets boost her ahead of both of them in terms of damage, and if her health gets low, hit the mini leech as a last ditch. Don't be afraid to use healing items if need be, vegetables and the like are plenty. But with the fight over, we flip the switch, and it's time to go back to that boat near Wayne's house on the OG world map. Along the way I find these people guarding a treasure room. This fight kinda cements why debuffs are so broken in this game. Wayne being able to put all enemies to sleep, or Dedulzman being able to confuse them all with some rather high chances, it's very useful. It might seem we're overpowered, but there's some annoying enemies too. Like these reoccurring enemies here who have a chance to counterattack, but the player only knows once the characters start taking their actions. I don't know if this is how counter enemies should be, because now it's just luck whether or not I hit them or they choose to counter and just destroy me. There is counterplay though, using skills, but if I didn't have any will, I'd be in a sorry spot. At the very least, this enemy was worth talking about. I guess I'd take that over an RPG with no distinguishing enemies that are memorable. I think that's a very slept on part of game design for RPGs. Funnily enough, I ended up dying on my way back and just warped back to the store in the mechanical city to buy some equipment. This actually made me skip the Act 2 transition, which would have played if I left this place normally instead of death warping. So I'm just going to put the Act 2 transition here like that didn't happen. It's boat time. God, the world map song that plays when on a vehicle is godlike to me. It was either that song or Chill I was going to open this video with. Anyways, I equipped my characters and kinda solidified them in their roles. Wayne was going to have high flesh and will, but no damage, so he was just here for support. Dedulzman, I'll be honest, I have no clue, but eventually they became support. Samsnosa, she was the damage dealer. With everything I could get, it's time we ride out. Now on boat, hey, I was just doing this last video, huh? But I mean, there's quite a few places to go. We can stop at any island with a dock. Non-dock islands will have to wait a bit. There's some side stuff to do, such as the big island in the middle, so let's go there. It's here I remember that Samsnosa could actually convert these bugs to increase her attack stat to go even higher. So if I ever go back, I can begin the harvest. It's interesting to think of all these non-traditional ways Hylics introduces to improve characters. It's like a slap to the idea of every RPG's needing experiences and level ups, instead of encouraging exploration in differing scenarios. That's something I learned myself with my work. I feel like at a certain point of making an RPG, the creator really has to question if they really need experience anymore. Like, I realized myself that experience is kind of arbitrary, and that there could be more interesting ways to put character progression into RPGs. But I don't mind it. I think one of the ways I realized this was seeing people do LLG runs in RPGs, or low level game runs, where they purposely don't take XP, and instead rely on knowledge and equipment to cleverly counter and maneuver around battles, which I always found so intriguing back then. There's much funner ways to handle things than just number go up, right? Back in game, I keep finding these people trying to sell me random animal food. I think I bought it once, but I don't know what it does, so it might just be another waste of money. This building here has some strange puzzle going on that I don't understand at the moment, so I'll have to come back to this a few minutes from now, because just north is an area that gives the answer to the puzzle. Select the shape seen here, and the door will open. So now we're just chilling with some weird ass guy in his house, I guess. Well, I hope there's something good on the TV at least. And there is. His TV gives us Dark Flame, that powerful spell the enemies have been destroying us with. So now we get to use it ourselves. And this red guy is the Dread Knight Pangorma. He wants to fight, so we do. Why? Who's this guy? What are we doing? You gotta stop it with the questions, gamer. I don't know what the hell is going on either. The guard enemies are back, and if y'all remember, they got Dark Flame, so wipe them first. I tried to confuse them, but luck rolled bad, I suppose, and I was getting flamed just about as much as I did in the comment section of my Yume Nikki video, so I had to use Mini Leech with some Snosa to save her, while also making sure to poison Pangorma to help out later on. But Pangorma has a skill called Mystic Meat that protects against debuffs like poison for 3 turns, but he didn't use it for a bit, so I still got decent mileage with the poison until then. Wayne's high health from his berry shield kept him alive, and healing who he could. I mean, Dodolzman dying is whatever, but Samsnosa needs to live. The fight becomes a lot easier when it's just Pangorma. I don't think he has anything too dangerous, but he can poison the whole party, and while poison destroys enemies, it can also massacre party members, so just try to rush this fight. I try to be clever going into this game with building characters how I traditionally would with RPGs. But looking back, honestly think that just maxing out everyone's attack power and speedrunning fights might be the best strategy. Y'all will see later. It's possible to get Mystic Meat earlier on by going back to that area with the warp and interacting with a TV there. It's a very useful ability, and good for this fight. But we defeat Pangorma, and he joins us as our last party member. He also has control over the ambulance skulls, meaning we don't have to worry about them anymore. That should make progressing certain areas easier. Sweet! Now we're set. Pangorma starts out strong, with a sword that does jolly damage. I don't know what the hell that means, but this might just be the weapon that cures depression. So Pangorma just comes in screaming, "Give me the dual wield item, I'm the damage dealer." And I sort of had a nice balance of 2 damage dealers and 2 supporters, though I still believe just making everyone a damage dealer to be the best strategy. I was receiving these items to permanently increase a character's mightiness stat, and I gave them all to Pangorma, because he can destroy. I swear I've heard people say this game is hard, and back when I played this 6 years ago, I might have agreed. But coming here with more experience, just play things smart and things will work out, and it's possible to become pretty unstoppable pretty easily. Like, nearly every skill in this game is broken in some degree. Like, Pangorma has a skill that deals like 25% of the enemy's current health, and that's broken as hell. But I could also be using that MP to cast something else that's somehow even more broken. And if y'all ever die, well, just come back stronger. It's a pretty forgiving game. But anyways, all this Pangorma crap was actually just optional stuff. We didn't even need this guy. Go back to Mech City if y'all are looking to equip, or any previous areas with ambulance skulls now that we're protected. Back at the warp area, I know I love this place so much, I always talk about it every day, but I ran into the Sage of Computers, giving me their token, so now I just need 1 left. This is another example of getting stronger in an interesting way by exploring, because once I get these 3 tokens, watch out. Back to the main course, where we actually need to go is this winding path here. Meet me up and I'll make some cornbread for y'all, free of charge, but make it quick. Though maybe this isn't the best place to eat, because we're at the cemetery, and ghosts are everywhere. First thing we can do is climb a ladder that will give us this general map of the area, and that's nice, but I ignored it. How this place works is that I need to push these gravestones in order to find these ladders, leading to an area with statues to activate. It's a pretty fun area to run through, and has another really chill song throughout it. I love this song. The ghost enemies here are pretty annoying though. They have high physical evasion, can blind, and super sap the party's MP. It's pretty obnoxious enemy design, but I'm pretty sure the intent is to not run into these enemies, so try avoiding them, but if forced into a fight, spend all the MP because it's gonna get stolen anyways. My Pangormo is sadly pretty weak at this point, not physically like this dude was clapping, but due to his absence till this point, he has really low HP and MP, but I have been stacking up meat, so I'll have to head back to the grinder at some point. After activating all the statues, head to the middle section with the colorful... yeah, I don't know what the hell that thing is, but it looks like me when I put a jammer on. But hit the switch, which will open a tall door not too far from here. Now we got a pretty neat area of walking on these people, with these Pangormas and Didolsmans in the back while we move around the Naruto runners. There's a lot of enemies here that are pretty easy to avoid, but if y'all are hungry for that meat, then go for it. But be careful, there is a pretty tough boss coming up. I need to reiterate that these battle animations are so cool. Like, look at Steady Stare. Golly, I can't wait to show y'all the dynamite items animation. Also managed to snatch the skill Health Chant for the party here. And this is up there when it comes to the best skills in this game, healing the entire party by 50% of their health. It's like giving the entire party a vegetable. Super good, and with Wayne's high MP, he can spam it. The fact that these healing items and attacks are percentage based really gives an incentive to having a lot of HP. Continuing on, there's this path here with this green enemy, and while they may not seem like much, they're actually a boss. The Tomb Shrub is a pretty good example on why just having damage dealers is ideal for this game. Like Health Chant, screw it, just deal as much damage as fast as possible. Because after a certain amount of turns, a weaker version of the boss spawns in, so it's a rush to kill everything as fast as possible. I love how as the fight goes on, the animations for spawning these in get goofier. It's a silly fight. Early on, the boss can unleash Bio Wave, which can lower the attack stat, aka mightiness, of all party members. The gimmick is that if I don't focus on crowd control, I'm going to get overwhelmed, and these enemies are moderately strong. So save the MP for when there's a bunch of enemies on the screen, as using skills on them all can be huge, especially if it's some Snosa's mini leech, but having Dark Flame is great for this fight too. After the fight, I arrive in the lower section of the tomb, where the walk cycles are getting weirder and statues are chasing me around. Make sure not to leave before snatching the final stage token from the Sage of Death. I'll be using all 3 of these pretty soon to get something cool. These statues that follow the player are yet another example of enemy manipulation, and they're an instant kill, but honestly, I had a lot of meat I needed to spend, so hell, I'll run into one so I can refill and come back. This gave the party a pretty big power boost in terms of just having more health, which Pangorma really needed, but regardless, let's finish this area and move on to Act 3. It's airship time. Yep. Completing the 3-part evolution of world map travel, we can now basically go wherever. But first things first, I take the boat down to the bottom left of the world map to this TV island. This is where I can cash in on my Sage tokens, earning me the ultimate ability of this game. Legend of Melting. It's a super strong skill that hits 3 times on random targets. Its only problem is that it's very MP expensive. Like, I couldn't even cast it with Pangorma unless I was wielding equipment that increases his will. If I had 4 damage dealers, honestly I could sweep any encounter if I had all my characters use it at the beginning of a fight. Now that we have an airship, we can really go anywhere. The map is fully open. I head to the north and find one of the coolest moments in this game, where we see all of our party members playing instruments and just jamming out. And the player can play a variety of notes and create their own songs on Wayne's guitar. I really like how this moment was just randomly thrown in, like, yeah sure, we're a band now, let's jam. And also, Wayne looks clean as hell with those sunglasses. Rock it, baby! Flying southeast, I find this nice little house on the island. I like how this place looks. If the player didn't know about the Snosa bug thing before, they're basically forced to now. I love the look of the screen with the water. It's actually pretty cozy. Inside we get a very interesting TV skill known as Illusion Form, which does nothing but randomizes the party's appearance to a variety of different sprites, which is pretty fun. If y'all see any footage of my characters looking different, this is why. I like how it makes the characters massive on the world map too. Speaking of which, I'm heading back to that warp world to fight that roaming boss I mentioned earlier. Remember? Pinky? Look at it scatter those stray pixels joyfully. Stuff like this angers my perfectionist ass when it comes to my sprite sheets, but it's cool to see a game embrace this. I always thought that this was some sort of roaming super boss, but maybe I was too strong now, or maybe I just really sucked at video games back then, because I two-turned this thing pretty easily. So I can't comment much on this fight. It has an attack that poisons all party members, but that's all I really saw before it died. By now, my strategy for basically all encounters going forward was counting mystery meat as soon as possible and buff skills on Snosa and Pongorma, and then they just slap up. That boss enemy gives a weapon that lowers HP but gives a ton of MP, so that's a good weapon for anyone who needs the MP to cast big skills. Back on the airship, I head to this donut island. I find this guy at a food stand selling hot dogs, which are full party vegetables, basically health chant, and a ship key for an outstanding amount of money. Like, obviously there's going to be some other way to get this item, right? Like, there's no way I'm getting this much money. Not too far from the vendor is the actual ship that we need the key for, but we don't have it, so we're gonna go elsewhere for now. Believe it or not, there's only one place on the map we haven't been to, so we're basically nearing the end of the game. So smoke some greens, take a bath with the whole party, and let's head to this tall tower. I like this trick here of having the characters continue to walk into this building, giving us this scrolling shot of the building slowly going up. It adds importance to the area, and I think it's pretty cool. This is the laboratory. We head to check in with the Clawman to get clearance, but it's looking like we don't quite have the password, so it's fight time. If the player hasn't learned to start every fight with Mystic Meat, they will now, as Clawman has a strong paralyzing attack. I spammed healed and hoped nobody got sniped, and slowly chipped away. Though if I wasn't playing so honestly, I could have just used Legend of Melting and won this fight in like one turn. With Clawman out of the way, I guess that means we can go to the lab. Nobody comments on anything in this game, things just happen and we move on. This is the kind of stuff that was really wearing on me at this point, that there really isn't anything to the story and characters of this game, things just happen. In some ways it's hard to say that there's much of a plot at all. I mean, most of our party members only have a few bits of dialogue and that's it. It's kind of unique, but I can't really say much is happening at all. Like, the main bad guy is Gibby, but why is he bad? I don't know. Who's Wayne? I couldn't tell you, just a guy. Maybe in some ways that makes it all cool, but besides the music and the art, it's kind of hard for me to stay invested in this game, especially by this point, where all the art has sort of just blended together. In that case, it's actually pretty nice this game's only like 2 hours. But we're nearing the point of this game where I believe it reveals its hand, its meaning, in a pretty fascinating finale. In the depths of the lab, we're allowed to use these strange machines, turning these test tube creatures into money, and I mean money, a lot of money. Yes, only the point of money has been completely eliminated, and I kinda love this. The limiters are off, and money has lost all importance. Hell, in most games, that ship key being so expensive is usually just a joke. Like, no way the player is ever going to get that much money. But no, in this game they do, and none of the other prices of other objects raise. Like, I don't know if there's any importance behind this machine, but with all this money, I can buy anything I want now. I went back to the hot dog guy and I bought 420 hot dogs and multiple ship keys because I could. It's all just a joke now. So let's start cruising in the ship and head out. Now we're on the moon, the final world map of the game. It's a pretty linear path to the end game, so let's go and give Gibby the hands, eh? Pay attention. This part is pretty cool. We arrive in the palace to find all these enemies guarding the area. It looks like we got a bunch of fights to do. But this is where the game actually gets really interesting. Instead of entering battles when we run into these people, we just start instantly killing them all. We find a TV, but upon interacting with it, it just crumples, no new skill or anything, with Wayne ellipsising. It's like the game knows it's ending, and that none of this matters anymore. It's such a strange feeling. We hit the final checkpoint crystal and talk with Gibby. And yes, even his dialogue is random. But it's time for the final fight of the game. Here's the dynamite animation, by the way. Cool as hell. I really like the final boss theme. Just this kind of chill, grungy guitar with random awkward instances of drums. It's just such an interesting sound, especially in the context of a final boss theme. This isn't what y'all would imagine a final boss theme should be. Even in the files, the song is just called 29 July 2015 song. No significance, could quite literally play anywhere else in the game. And that's what makes it such a message that is used specifically here. Just this random, melancholic strumming away, switching melodies and just playing something that sounds cool with no forethought. That's all assumative, but it reminds me of my amateur ass making music. There's a relatability in the process of the sound that I can feel. Oh, the final boss is already dead? Well, shoot. To be fair, this was my second attempt, so let's rewind. So on my first try, under my current party build, this fight is hard as hell. Gibby has 2 towers. The Eerie statue debuffs and the Vital statue does huge healing. If you didn't cast Mystery Meat on the first turn, then just restart the fight because it's already over, as Gibby just spams dancing gremlins, confusing the whole party. This fight is basically a huge damage check, and it punished me for playing a more methodical way, trying to build a balanced team, because after a certain point, I just couldn't win. I reached a stalemate of my damage dealers constantly dead, as I tried to balance my Mystic Meats, healings, and revives, all the while the Vital statue would just fully heal Gibby. I actually got stuck on this unwinnable scenario for like 7 minutes. So second time around, I said screw that, boost everyone's MP, spammed Legend of Melting, and won in like 2 to 3 turns. Nice. Keep this in mind, because I might be giving too much credit, but I think the fact that my traditional way of approaching this game, getting punished, is pretty relevant to the themes of the game. But with that, Gibby is finished, giving us a ton of XP and money, leveling up my team to level 63. Wait, there aren't levels in this game. It's kind of brilliant, really. After the final encounter in the game, after saying, no, this isn't some tough final dungeon, no, money doesn't matter anymore, it finally gives player XP and levels. Like, happy? Is this what you wanted all along? Well, here. Like, does this have any meaning to you? To farther bring on the idea that nothing has meaning anymore, and the fabric of the game itself is being ripped apart, Gibby gives a generic, empty villain dialogue of no significance, despite sounding like something that could be, before cheesily stating that he started a self-destruction sequence, which I doubt actually has a timer or anything. We leave the grandest, most anticlimactic palace ever, get on our ship and ride back. The moon is now destroyed, and more pointless ending text as we're taken to the final screen of this game, where we hit the switch to spell the end. Hitting it multiple times gives us the proper credits, but to leave this area, we just have to talk to this ghostly figure of the intermission character, though we could just also activate the credits again. But yeah, this is the end screen. And yeah, that's Hylics. Hylics is like an anti-game. I came out of it feeling so empty and hollow, like I just wasted my time. And that's because I believe this game was specifically made to anger people like me, aka losers, who come in expecting the typical RPG adventure, but suddenly there's no XP, dying doesn't game over, there's no interesting plot or characters, and by the end of the game it just laughs in the player's face, having them carve through this epic palace, giving XP and levels at the final joke, that at this point people wanting a normal RPG just have to laugh with the joke directed at them. But maybe it's also a stab of respect, that this game can be seen as its own thing doing what it wants, isolated from what we traditionally want in our expectations, encouraging players to open their minds instead of preconditioning themselves to have expectations on what these kinds of games should have and be, a key to open our minds to see the colors of games. The walls unfold around us to reveal a grand world that we never knew was always there. The game asks me, why are you trying to build party members into these traditional classes and roles? Be loud, play different, stop trying to be optimal, because the game was designed so that wouldn't work. In fact, the idea of playing traditionally optimal is not good. The player is encouraged to lose battles so that they can become stronger, encouraged to change their mind on how they look at games, to break the mold that has been built up from years of similar games piggybacking off the ideas. The game asks me why I'm trying to understand and care about all these stats. They're jokes. Yet when I look at them critically or seriously, the real joke becomes me. I like the nod of the trash can folding up and giving nothing at the beginning of the game, as if the game is confused. Like, who cares if that didn't have an item? Wasn't that cool to look at? To people oblivious to the point it's trying to make and what it's trying to express itself as. Even the idea of finding meaning, coming in and trying to experience a traditional story, or people who come in doing some over-analysis of the game, without knowing that the text is randomized, it's just another joke. And it's funny that by the end of the game, there really isn't much left to do now. Money means nothing, fights mean nothing, even our characters' appearances can be changed. Nothing matters or holds any weight. It really encourages the player to pull back, and look at things as a whole, like a piece of art. Really. Like I spent my whole time glaring at this picture, only for Mason to tap me on the shoulder like, pretty cool, right? And yeah, it was pretty cool. There's no meaning to the world of this game, but I think that meaning can be taken from it. I think there's something to be said about the theme of rebuilding, how the player is encouraged to die and rebuild, how it can create these sandcastles and step on them just as fast, how things like vegetables grow back. It's like a lecture from a friend. The idea of the clay this game was made with and how it changes, how we can make something, crush it, and mold it into something new. A sort of lifestyle of always changing and molding to be anything. Flexible flowing liquid. It's an expression of an art through game form. Like if someone asked me why clay is cool, it's this religical idea of being able to rebuild, create all these different shapes and creations out of just one ball of clay, that anything can be made from something. I feel like these are the words that a clay artist would describe to me as they're rolling around creating their own projects, these incredible abstract pieces of art, a craft, a lifestyle. And that's what this game wordlessly describes to me by experiencing it. And I think that's a lot more interesting than just saying, this game sure is weird, huh? Hylics in itself translates to something alongside the idea of general nondescript matter, which may fit the idea of this game being about whatever it wants to be and creating whatever it wants to be. The term Hylics actually has some pretty high relevancy in the ideals of a religious belief known as Gnosticism, but I'm going to be honest, trying to look this up and understand everything about it, that's outside my existence. Trying to commit this stuff to memory and understand it, I don't think my brain's capable of it. So overall, what do I think about Hylics in general? Well, does that matter? Honestly, the idea of me going through this game, describing fights and strategy, while kinda ignoring the entire point of the game, was my joke to you all. The idea to instead choose to see this game straightforward through game mechanics rather than the true message of the experience that can only be had between player and author. This playthrough analysis was completely pointless. But maybe y'all still found enjoyment and meaning from it. I offered my ball of clay, and you all molded something from it. And that's what I think about Hylics, and the meaning of it. I know the title of this video might sound a little arrogant, but it's the conversation between myself. The thumbnail is the question to myself, and the video is fully my reply. In reality, I'm talking to myself, answering a simple question, and you all are just listening in. But I'll step back and put my feet on the ground once more. Hylics the game isn't anything I find particularly interesting outside its visuals and music, but Hylics as an experience, for only 2 hours, I think can be important to certain people. It's a little clear by how long it's been since I last played it that I don't particularly have much interest in going back to Hylics. Not like I too often go back to games, but I was never missing Hylics. But I think it does have something to offer for one playthrough. It's very different, and that's refreshing. I know there's a Hylics 2 out there, and I'm sure it kicks ass. I mean, if y'all are interested, let me know, and maybe slide me the supporter money so I can get it, if y'all catch my drift. Deal some jolly damage to me. But I don't want to devalue Hylics 1 by ringing up its sequel. The experiences are both probably too vast to compare, and I feel like merging them might make them lose the individual qualities that they both have. I think I've said all I have to on Hylics. I'm feeling pretty chill right now. I guess this is the part of the vid that I normally recommend the game, but most of y'all have already played it, huh? If so, I hope my video hasn't changed anyone's own view of the game. That's not my clay to touch, but if y'all want to acknowledge my structure, feel free to. The game's dirt cheap, 2 hours, and probably won't hurt anyone's health, so give it a swing. And if you like it, make it a gateway to Hylics 2. I like how I went from comparing this game to clay and to now just comparing it like it's a drug. But as for me, the next time I'll be seen, it's gonna be Halloween. So, until then, I'll catch y'all later. Hey y'all, this was a bit of a different video. I guess I'll return to a more classic spacey. Let me know if y'all prefer this over my more reviewer heavy spacey. These videos where I give a little talk on the game at the beginning and the end, and then spend the middle describing my playthrough. Always felt like these videos could be kinda boring, just reading out what players can experience on their own, especially for games that don't have a lot of player freedom. Like, how dare I waste someone's time when they can just play through the game themselves? I'm taking their potential fun away. I don't know, there's just something that makes me feel lazy for doing this. Like, I'm not doing anything interesting when I cover games this way. And I just have a lot of problems like structuring and like, should I talk about this or should I leave it out? And I just don't know if these are interesting. Because on the other side, some people see these videos as pretty cozy. And it's nice for people who haven't played Hylics in a while, people who are interested in my experience and just hearing someone talk about a game they know. Even if I kind of like it when I get people to see something new that they haven't played, the Halloween video is soon, and it's gonna be weird too, so get psyched. I'll see y'all then.